Well, Max, I have heard the view this morning circulating that this is somewhat of an ultimatum from President Putin to the West, ultimately retreat or we will turn to nuclear warfare. Is that the right assessment?
Well, I think Putin thinks he's speaking with the West, but of course the West isn't the one fighting in Ukraine. It is the Ukrainian army. They are supported by the West, but the Ukrainians will continue to fight for their freedom, national self-determination, and liberation, even if the West were to stop supplying arms. So it is also very much a direct threat against Ukraine. We've seen a real escalation in the Russian military's tactics in terms of targeting civilian infrastructure. The southern Ukrainian nuclear power plant in Mykolaiv Oblast, the Mykolaiv region, was also hit with a rocket just earlier this week. So Putin is talking to the West, but he's threatening Ukraine and seems to be ignoring the reality of Ukrainian politics that he has to face, as well as the realities of his own domestic politics, I might add.
Max, there has been some response to this, of course, from the global community. Just reading out a few moments ago, the U.S. ambassador has said in a tweet then, the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, saying that sham referenda and mobilization are indeed a sign of weakness, of Russian failure, noting that out on Twitter. The UK's defense secretary also putting out that Putin's breaking of his own promises not to mobilize parts of his population and the illegal annexation of parts of Ukraine are indeed an admission then of that his invasion is failing. Is that, sort of the case that the world is viewing this at? I mean, he has said that he's not bluffing when it comes to things like the nuclear warheads that he does have. And has he left something up his sleeve here by saying it's only a partial mobilization as opposed to a full mobilization, then meaning that he can get more people in, hopefully, at a later stage if he deems so?
I think the partial mobilization language is really aimed at a domestic audience trying to say, oh, this isn't a full-scale war. Still, he's still using the special military operation language. But of course, this is the first mobilization in general announced in Russia since the Soviet-Afghan war. And the text of the decree, which was published as soon as Putin spoke, doesn't say anything about partial. And my reading of it is that that decree could certainly be used to justify a full mobilization, if we want to call it that as well. With regards to the West's attitude, I think the West, it is a part of this conflict in the sense that there's an economic war ongoing with Russia. And although it is almost entirely cut off from the global financial markets due to the central bank and other sanctions, I think we'll see yet more escalation there. The real question, though, is not just about the West's opinion, but how are other countries going to react to this? Russian state media has been full of talk that the BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization are going to be on board. But of course, we just saw at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit that India's leader openly challenged Putin, saying it was a time for peace. Putin appeared to acknowledge that China had concerns as well. So I think the West will really be looking to use this to try to bring some of those countries together in that economic war effort as well, saying, look, Putin has clearly gone too far. It is time for that. We've seen initial steps with Turkey announcing that it would no longer take part in Russia's Mir program to get around some of the banking sanctions after U.S. threats in recent days. And I think that's where really the diplomatic focus in Washington, London, and Brussels should be going towards, is those third countries.